explaining a second-degree burn, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to get them some words that you will probably expect in their prose, in their writing.
Yeah.
So we want to do that. Also, we want to get them some lexis. We talked about lexis last time we met.
Explaining a
We
second.
talked about lexis last time we met, right?
You're right. Groups of words.
Right. So words, chunks of words. So what are some chunks of words that you might? What are some chunks of words?
Um, like the stimulating event.
The stimulating event, right? The stimulating event, right?
Or well, anyway, along those lines, be something descriptive, probably something that's repetitive.
Right.
Um,
That you can expect to see in that type of that you
Right,
may
in that.
see in that type of context. So this is very important to give them to model the context. And what I mean by model it is maybe write one in front of them, right? Or gives them examples and go over the examples. What we call model, we call them model paragraphs. So give them a model paragraph. Or sometimes what I do is I'll write a model paragraph in front of the students, and they tend to really like that, because when I model a paragraph in front of them, I show them that it's not as easy as they think it is, because they see me struggling. Oh, what word do I want to use here? No, I don't like that word. No, let me do this over here. So they see my process, right? I will write a brainstorm, an outline. I go through that whole process. I go that whole writing process, so they can see it and understand that it's not something that should be easy or automatic, because the teacher was, he had some questions about what he was writing, what words he used. And I go through that whole process, even down to revising what I wrote and asking them, what's the better word I could use it, I could use here. And what do you think about this? And, did I prove my topic sentence? Does do these supporting sentences and main point sentences support the topic sentence? And I ask them, right? Because one of the things I like to establish with students when we talk about writing is that there's no right answers.
Right.
There's no perfect way to write. It's whether you're able to communicate the point, right? As long as we're following the rules of grammar, following good mechanics, we're worrying about being concise, coherent and concise, and have good cohesion. And this is what I really push with with students. Is the 3 C's. Actually, it's 2 C's, but always include concise, right? Because I want them to get out of a habit of writing the way they speak. So
that's clear, coherent, concise.
Yeah. So coherent, cohesion, and conciseness. So coherence, cohesion, and conciseness. Normally, most teachers will say coherency and cohesion. Because cohesion actually goes, or coherence actually goes in with conciseness, but I like to pull conciseness out, because most people, they like to write a lot, because we have trained people to write 200 words, write 500 words, write so. So I try to break learners out, writers out of that. You write the least amount of words, be concise, find the right vocabulary that will help you reduce your sentence length. What is the shortest way to get there? What is the shortest way is the best way to get there, while keeping the depth and the sophistication of your work. The the other principle is what I just said. Make sure they have opportunity to discuss. So when I'm modeling the paragraph, I ask them, what do you think about this? Especially in the brainstorm. You know, although some ideas and while I'm brainstorming, should I include this in my paragraph? Should I include that? Do you think this is too much information? So they can see that this is a thinking activity. Writing is a thinking activity more than is a writing activity.
Okay.
It's a thinking activity. So I try to structure the brainstorming as an, so they, because a lot of times in the writing process, people skip the brainstorm, right? Most people even skip the outlining and they go right into the draft, the draft. And and that brainstorm opens discussion, whether it's discussion with yourself or with other people. And I challenge them, have discussion with other people, even if you're home. Ask your dad, ask your mom, ask your brother. We got to write about, how it feels to be scammed. How does it feel to be scammed? You ever been scammed, Dad? Get other people's perspectives. Um, you know, Google it, Wikipedia. Do a Wikipedia search. See if you find a blog, a podcast. Normally, what I tell my students, you spend more time in the brainstorming than any other part. Take a couple days. Take a couple days. All right. So they get personally involved. What that's going to do is hopefully provide a level of sophistication in their writing and get them to understand that it's a thinking process more than it's the writing process. Generate and share ideas, vocabulary. We talked about that. Epidermis, the event. They need those words, signal words, consequently, after that, first, second, next. On the other hand, as a result, they need those words to help with transition, they help with cohesion. Show them how to use therefore, however. These are all tools they can use to help describe and explain their topic.
So we started off with the context,
Uh-huh.
right? And then we went into modeling, where we said we'd share vocabulary, phrases, we'd attempt to write maybe even part of the program on the board and go through the process with them, and then share, go through also the Lexis that will come their way or that they need to know. And then we go to this the part about making sure they can discuss what it is that they're giving them time to brainstorm, I would assume, and giving them time to ask questions and to sort of like reflect on what it is that they have to do and what they have to write.
Right. And so the good thing about that is it should be a result of something they listen to. Like when we listen to the passing, now we're going to go into writing. So hopefully, we're just not giving them just random topics. It's connected to something that we have done in class. The history teacher is having them write about, 18th century Russian czars, right? Because they spent 2 weeks talking about on this unit, and they should have a lot of good information because they have a lot of discussion. They should have been a lot of discussion and watching videos and reading chapters from the text, and again, more discussions and worksheets. And so they should be, when we're asking them to write, we should have prepared them to write.
Okay.
After that, we want to get the students to start writing in class. And this is where we become a coach. So this is the class setup becomes very important here. It doesn't work. It could work if you have a lot of students, but it's really strong if you have a few. If you don't have that many students in class, right? You have a limited amount of students, few students in your class. So you can create a circle with the desk, put yourself in the middle, right? Or another, and then so basically you have a writing circle where you're in the middle. There's space between the desks so the students can walk and come back and forth to you. There's a desk, and there's two desks in the middle, the desk you're sitting at and an empty desk with a chair, and then the circle. So as they are writing in class and they have a question, they can come inside the circle, sit at the desk, and then you can kind of coach them. You can manage it, give them 1 or 2 minutes, send them back to the circle, and people will come. Because again, they're gonna have questions. Does however make sense right here? Am I using epidermis in the right context here, or correctly? Am I using the word correctly? They're going to have a million questions, right? And then you're just coaching them, building really their advocacy. Also, the circle allows them to start switching papers. You can ask them to, all right, switch papers regardless of where you are, and switch papers to the right or switch papers to the left, counterclockwise, clockwise, right? And then they can do some peer reviewing or peer revising or peer suggestions. So they're not just getting your feedback, but they're getting the feedback of the peers.
So when they switch papers, the person who gets it gives his opinion or okay.
This is opinion.
Feedback.
Normally you want to have a rubric. So because normally what happens is, especially with younger people, it'll be, oh man, this is good. It could be horrible.
Yeah.
So you want to have a rubric that you give them that will say, okay, does it, from 1 to 5 is from 1 to 5, how good is the topic sentence, right? In this topic sentence, does he have a topic? Does he have a controlling idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it sophisticated? And they can, give the grader or give them a rubric so they can have meaningful discussion, right? Instead of just saying, oh man, this looks good to me. Look, it looks like you don't have a controlling idea in your topic sentence, or yeah, it looks like the third sentence is a fragment, right? Because that's not a verb. You don't have a verb. So now it gives them something tangible to look for, and just saying, oh man, it looks good, right? The students now can look at the rubric, and then when they get their paper back, they've now gotten feedback from teachers, they got feedback from their peers with the guidance of the rubric. Rubric is key here. So making sure that anytime you give a writing assignment, there's a rubric. There's a rubric for that activity, for that writing assignment. And I would say the rubric needs to be small and in line. Some rubrics you see there's like 30 different things, right? It's too much. Yeah, it should be maybe five key points. It's the topics. Do you have a strong topic sentence? Are there any fragments in the paragraph, right? Is it coherent? Is it understandable? Do you have a conclusion? Is the conclusion a summary or recommendation, right? So maybe 5, 6 points that the writer, the student can do a diagnosis, and also his peers can diagnose. This will also be the same rubric you use to grade their paper. Okay.
Okay, that's
So
interesting.
you're setting them up for success. It's I would not discount the in-class writing. Now, obviously, if you're talking about professional writers, we're in grad school. They need to develop the context and the discussion, right? We all need that. You would decide whether, like in grad school, if it's graduate school, whether they need to do in class, whether it needs to be in class or not, the peer review, because at that point they should be so self-regulated. That I'm really talking about new writers to the English language, to the language, and this applies whether we're talking about English or any language, right? Yeah, so make sure that you process the product, and this is again due to reader, full coherence, full cohesion. Is it interesting? Is it ready to be published? Right? Now, for young learners, publish could be putting it on a wall. Well, nowadays with technology, it could be putting it in a social media group or in class dojo, some form of technology, or putting it on the wall, right? But so is it ready to be published? Also, it's important for the learners to establish and know who the audience is. Who are they writing to? Are they writing to you, the teacher? Are they writing to their parents? Are they writing to their peers? Are they writing to the president? Are they writing to their enemy? Because this will also dictate the tone and the formality of what they're writing. So it's very important they know who the audience is, because the audience would typically dictate whether they're writing academic or business. We call academic writing, which is academic writing and business writing are pretty much the same. Business writing is very, very concise, short and concise. Academic writing is also concise, but it could be a little bit longer, and have, details to support the thesis, whereas business writing is about being in and out, right? You don't need to explain the world. You just need to make your point, get in and get out. Whereas academic writing, we want to be cogent, we want to be concise, but we do have a little room to explain our points of views and perspectives. It's also important that you're able to demonstrate, and we normally do this by modeling that the words you use, talking about tone, the words you use create the context.
And this is during the modeling phase.
Yeah, you're doing the modeling phase, and so you want to model that, you want to talk about that, how, and you want to show that in the model paragraph and other examples, how words create the context. Right. Because it's not a live conversation, it's text. So it's important that they are able to select the most appropriate vocabulary. And that's why, again, that's why you're going to go over vocabulary and lexis. Yeah, and it's important, and I'll make this point again, that writing is a thinking process. It's the result of good, hard thinking. So it's important that learners know they have to follow the writing process. They have to brainstorm. They have to outline, and more importantly, they have to draft and not be afraid to draft. They have to so writing becomes a time management issue because you can't write it the day before it's due.
Yeah.
Right? Uh, it's going to be garbage. You look at works like the Grapes of Wrath, where he writes the first edition and just throws it away because it felt like it wasn't even readable. Uh, so what I like to tell my students is let's focus on the process of writing. Right?
Mhm.
Let's focus on the process, the revision. First draft, then revision, revise, and then the last thing they did with the edit would be edit. And the more we become better at writing, we edit as we go along. But for young writers, it's important that they know they throw something on paper first, draft. That's not ready to be published, right? That is not ready to be published. Um, Regardless who you are, that first writing is not ready to be published. And then revise. Don't be
Right.
afraid to
Yeah.
revise for
Not
ideas.
at all.
Revise for ideas. Are you frozen? Can you hear me? Dot, are you there?
Nah, I'm okay.
Are you there? Are you there? Is that better? Can you hear me? All right.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I hear you.
I'm gonna leave the video off. Just that might make it better.
Yeah, actually, there's like I told you at the beginning, there's a power issue, and I think that's what caused it to basically crash. I
Okay.
wanted to talk to you about revising and editing.
Yep.
Um, how could you reduce that process? Sometimes when I write, I find myself I'll write my first draft. I allow my ideas to float. Of course, I've already done some form of an outline,
Right.
and then I'll let myself, just float with ideas for a while. For example, this is the phase where if I can't find sometimes the vocabulary, right? So I'll just write the definition, of what I'm trying to say here, or I'll just let it flow with, simpler words and then come back to it. The thing is, though, I can find myself in this revision process for a very long time,
Yep.
revising and editing. And then sometimes I'll edit it and then I'll come back and I'll revise it again and edit it again. So what
So what I
advice do
would
you have?
do, yeah, what I would do is don't edit, just revise.
And
Because
when you say revise, what procedures are involved in that precisely?
for me, it's reading it out loud,
Mhm.
making sure that I'm on track, that I'm on my pathway to explaining the point. And I normally do, excuse me, I know I normally do this paragraph by paragraph. So I make sure that my fully developing this paragraph based on the topic sentence. So I'll struggle for a little bit to make sure the topic sentence is something that's supporting the thesis. Is this topic sentence truly supporting the thesis? And so what I struggle with is making sure I have enough information or not too much information in that paragraph to make it work with the other paragraphs. So I have good cohesion and it is coherent. I'm not breaking unity. It's supposed to be there, right?
Yeah.
So I won't worry about. I will not worry about editing. All right, uh, while I'm in this revision phase. I just won't worry about it. I mean, obviously, if it's a mistake that I can fix, right, in a second or two, that's fine. Uh, I won't, but I'm not revising and editing as I go along because if you edit, then you end up deleting that sentence anyway because you didn't like it. Then you just
Right.
wasted time. You just wasted your time. So what I do is I do a lot of reading out loud. I do a lot of making sure reading the previous paragraph to make sure it flows, have good cohesion, is nice and cogent. Um, and and I just stay there until, and sometimes it's painful until, unless I get, and just writing sometimes is a good flow. You get a day where you have a good flow. You don't
Mhm,
have to do it as much, and the other days where you struggle a little bit.
mhm.
But
Yeah,
my only advice would be don't revise. Just wait till the end. Or if you do need to revise, revise once you're happy with
edit. You
the
mean
con.
don't edit
I
until
mean, edit. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Don't edit. Just edit once you're happy. Once you're happy with that paragraph. All right. And then once you're happy to with that paragraph, then edit that paragraph and then move on to the next paragraph.
Okay, and here when you say edit the paragraph.
Right. Edit.
Uh,
All I'm so you revise for ideas. You edit
mhm.
for grammatical mistakes, for being cogent, being concise.
Okay.
All right. So a lot of times the editing for me is to be concise. I'm using too many words as a better
Right,
word.
right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I'm rambling on and stuff.
I'm rambling, yeah. And that's where Grammarly comes in and saves you.
Okay.
So like, or if you don't have Grammarly, you just have to do it yourself. But that's where software comes in and reduces your time. Software can never revise for you, but they can do good editing for you.
Oh, okay. All right, excellent.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part with students because they just want to get it over with. They,
Right,
they turn this in for a grade and they just want to get
right.
it over with. So convincing them that they should. So what I do is I tell them I need to see at least three revisions. So they had at the university is draft one, draft two, draft three, editing draft, and then the final draft.
Good.
And I will take off points if I notice they're just trying to be slick and copying and pasting. So they have to it has to, each draft has to be visibly different.
Okay.
Which
How-
if they're doing it right, it becomes if they're doing it right, then it's not painful. Because as you know, you're gonna want to revise things. You're not gonna be happy with the first thing you wrote.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, definitely the first thing you write at the end when you come look at it, you're like, did I actually write this? What
Right.
was I
This is garbage. What was I smoking? Right. And what I tell my students, I tell them to walk away from it for a couple of hours, come back
Mhm.
to it, and then you're gonna see that you're not happy with it.
That's true. That's true. A couple of hours, or even sometimes I can. It depends what type of writing it is, right? So the
Absolutely.
more academic and the more uh the bigger the project and things like that, the more I really have to get away from it. But then I have this habit I found that if I get away from it, when I get back to it, I have like to go through, like I'll spend time on it. I'll have more patience with it,
Yep.
and I can spend and it has to be very ordered. The way I deal with it, like it has to be, if it's going to be an activity that I'll do in the evening time, for example, then I need my space. I need the
Yeah.
ambiance has to be right, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
work
yeah.
on it
Definitely. That's
competitively.
definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You gotta. Yeah, it's like almost like going on a date.
Yeah, you have to get
Yeah,
very personal with it, and
yeah.
you have to respect it a lot.
Right. But but the good thing about it is, um, what we ask our students to do, it doesn't have to be that intimate, right?
Right,
Because
right.
so that's the good thing is that it doesn't have to be that intimate for what we're doing. Um, and they will kind of learn that on their own. Um, so yeah, I'm pretty much at the end of that. Um, this idea that is writing is a thinking process, and another as far as kind of the brain science is when you really think about it, and you just think about this for a second,
Mhm.
writing happens really at the point of the pen, or nowadays the point in which the tips of your fingers touch the keyboard. That's when
Right.
writing really happens. That's when you really make the decision, right? Most of us don't say, okay, I got this sentence in my head, now I'm gonna write the sentence. Most of us don't write like that. We write sentences as the fingers touch the keyboard. And and because of that, that's the bigger reason why we have to revise so much, because there's a lot of spontaneous things going on. And I know for me, as the fingers touch the keyboard, then I get new ideas, right? And I'm not
Right.
going to go back and put them in an outline. I'm
Yeah.
I'm inserting them. And then when you insert these new ideas, that's when things go awry, right? And so that's why revision is so important, because as you engage the topic, you will come up with new ideas. And then it can that's when things look a little, you having coherence issues, not because you can't write, it's because you're inserting these new ideas and you didn't really put them in the outline and think about them, because they're spontaneous thoughts, right? And you're trying to include these spontaneous thoughts, and maybe that thought should be in another paragraph or the previous paragraph,
Right.
or maybe it shouldn't be there at all. And
Exactly.
that's why revision is so important, because writing is very spontaneous.
But lately, what I've noticed with myself is that even on smaller things like writing an email, for example, sending it out. So I don't really follow I have the basic structure of what the email will be, but I'm not as spontaneous. I used to be spontaneous, but then I found that I'd write like 7, 8 lines
Right,
and then like remove 4 of them or 5 and then say, nah, brevity, brevity, brevity.
right, right.
And so I found what's helpful is if I just take a second to think about exactly what it is I want to say, right?
Mhm.
And then I'll write it, and then I'll take out what I feel is just an extension of my reflection, or is just there's no need to use 3 adjectives for one process, in this brief email. So I'll remove that, and it reduces the amount of time. And
Right,
really, brevity is key. If you just stick to what it is, what is it that you want to say,
right.
right? And just say it, because a lot of writing is um a lot of times, well, in my writing at least, there's the introduction and introduce the idea and do it in a way that's very if it's too brief, then you come off as being rude.
Right.
That's the general impression, and you don't want to come off like that. And also has to do with the history of my own history when it comes to writing. And then I just decided recently that, nah, you know what, you can make it brief and very very nice. You can just
That
add
one, see, and I think it's also a age thing.
Mhm.
And I'm noticing the more, and now in these times, people don't want to read a lot.
Right.
So brief, now it's actually courteous to be brief.
Mhm.
Think back when you were reading journals 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they were a lot longer than journals now.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, they're a lot longer than journals now. People are writing write-ups, 3 or 4 pages, and they get inside and they're getting peer-reviewed journals, 3, 4, 5 pages long. That you didn't see that 20 years ago. 3 or 4, that was something, maybe a conference paper or something like that, but not a peer-reviewed journal that was 4 pages long. You know, so
Mhm.
I think it's a generational thing too. More and more people, and I think it's because of technology, because of this whole thing of sending short emails. It's rude to send a long email, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so I think it's a consequence of the technological age that we live in.
True.
Um,
True.
um, so yeah, that's teaching writing. And again, teaching writing is much shorter than the other ones. Why? Because it's the last thing. It, it, it,
Right.
it
Yeah.
it's the last thing we do.
Mhm.
So follow that process on top of all the strategies you use to get the learners to the point where they are prepared to write. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna stop there. I was gonna do appropriate language, but I think I'm gonna stop there.
Okay.
And I think our next class, I don't think we have too many more classes
Mhm.
because um, we have appropriate language. I want to go over learner profiling. We could probably do that all together. And I need to do with you noticing errors. And then after that, I we I gotta check, but I think we're pretty much finished. So I think we'll do appropriate language and then learner profiling, and then we'll spend the whole class on noticing errors. So I think we only got like two, maybe three more classes left.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So can you maybe you can share something on a good paper or a good article on writing, because this is something that also I'm trying to improve. Um,
It's
if you have
so
a source or something.
I mean, it's so much stuff out there. I'll tell you for someone at your level, the best thing. It's expensive. I'm not gonna lie to you,
Mhm.
but if you can get a Grammarly subscription,
Right.
Grammarly will your writing will improve two times, three times over.
Okay.
Grammarly it picks up on your writing style.
Hmm.
It's very adaptive, and it begins to know the mistakes that you uh, or your writing style, and it basically coaches you through and forces you, breaks you out of certain habits.
Okay. Okay. I can do that. Well,
So
what's the subscription cost per year?
I think it's cheaper if you get a year. I don't know because I'm cheap, and I'm cheap, so I get the 3 months and I renew every 3 months. Then I realize that I'm actually paying more when I renew every 3 months. So I need to just buy the year subscription. I'm not sure what the year subscription is. I want to
Hmm.
say it's like $150.
Hmm.
I know I pay $50 every 3 months.
Okay. All right. So it's something like it's less than $200. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'll
it's
check it
less
out. There's no worries.
yeah,
I'll check
but
it out.
I tell you, everyone that I know um, who has a Grammarly subscription, they won't let it lapse because if you're writing a lot, because
Right. Right.
it's just a lifesaver. And now they have it where it's connected to your Microsoft Word, so you don't have to
Okay.
you don't have to copy and paste it into anything. It's connected to your Word. You can connect it to your Google. It basically you can connect it to your phone, and so it's really good when you send in emails and you don't make a stupid mistake in your emails. It won't let you make a
Okay.
dumb grammatical errors. It works. It really emphasizes the brevity. Um, um, and
Wonderful.
what I'm noticing more and more now, it even does some kind of revisions for you if you really think about it, because there's a function now where it will say, hey, look, this sentence should be up here,
Hmm.
which is really a is not that's really a revising idea, or do you really mean to say this, is this the idea you really want to put here, right? So it's kind of editing, and it's also kind of a little revision. It's mainly editing though. It's 99% editing. There's also a plagiarism function in it
Very
also.
good. Hmm.
So it tells you if you're 20%, 10%. So it's good for me at the university because I can plug it into my app. I can plug a student's work into my app if I think it's not his
Right.
original work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's something I do all the time. But I use this other one. It's called Plagiarism Detector.
Hmm.
It's free.
Yeah,
And what you have
yeah,
to do is you have to cut and paste,
you got to
and
cut
it
and paste.
allows you only a certain amount of material. So you can't just take the whole thing and put it in.
Yeah, so Grammarly, you just if the student is using Microsoft Word, well, I got force my students to use Word, turn it in Word using Microsoft Word.
Okay.
You just open it up on a computer where you have Grammarly, and Grammarly will automatically um, uh, tag itself, or integrate itself into that student's work, and then you can just push, find the plagiarism option, and they'll tell you if the student plagiarized.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful.
That's
All right.
that tends to be um, what works well for me as Grammarly. I noticed that has been the best thing for me and a lot of other people. Also, I listen to Grammar Girl a lot. She's awesome. So I don't, are you familiar with Grammar Girl?
No, but you've mentioned her before,
Yeah.
and
I mean, she has a podcast. Her podcast, they're only like 4 minutes long. In 4 minutes, she goes in and out. That's why I love it. And also, she has a blog. You can pretty much blog. You can pretty much put anything, and Grammar Girl is going to come up with explanation for you. So check Grammar Girl out. Writing, vocabulary usage, grammar, proper grammar. She gets into it. I know I have her on my Audible account, and I listen to her sometime when I'm running.
okay. All right then. I'll check them out.
All right.
All right. When would be our next class?
This is we can probably finish up this week because we're off this week.
Mhm.
Next week we're off, so we could probably finish up next week. So if you want to just shoot for Sunday, and we finish, maybe we go Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday just to finish the whole deal off.
Here's the deal. The thing is that on Monday I start a pretty intensive training
Okay.
all the way up to Thursday.
Okay.
So whatever
Let's
we
do
can
this.
get.
Let's do this.
Mm.
Saturday, let's just finish it out. If you can spend
Okay.
2 or 3 hours with me Saturday, we just finish the whole thing out.
Okay.
And
Saturday, so I'm off for Saturday, so I have time. So what time would you like to?
yeah, maybe midday Saturday, if you're free. 12,
Okay,
so
like,
like 12, we go
yeah.
12 to 3, something like that, 12 to 2, something like that.
Okay.
And then what I'm gonna do is I'll give you, just to be formal, I'll give you the TESOL test
Okay.
and see how much. I'm not gonna grade it, but just see how much you can get right.
On
And
Saturday?
no. I'll
Okay.
give it to you, and you just finish when you're ready, and then that'll be
Okay.
the end of the course.
Okay. Okay.
All
Can
right.
do that. All right. All right. Sure.
All right.
Okay. Saturday, 12 o'clock. And
Yep.
anyway, you know that I'm off Saturday and Sunday. So if you have any change, anything like that, you can send me a message. No problem.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna try to stay out of trouble this weekend.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Great.
All
Excellent.
right.
Thank you very much, Ray.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye for now.